two words, character and charisma, they sound very similar. They sound as though they are both good traits that people should have and they might be related to each other. But if you think about the meaning of each one of the words, you will realize that they are completely opposite in meaning. The word charisma comes from the Greek word charis, which means the art of being able to get kindness, goodwill, and favor from others. And the word character comes from the Greek word meaning to chisel, or the mark left by a chisel. And in Greek times, a chisel was a metal object used for making a sculpture out of a hard material like granite or marble, right? So character comes from the word chisel, meaning to chisel out of your own character, out of your own personality traits, the things that you want to have. Meaning you can't be born with good character. Character is something that you have to develop by getting rid of things like lack of discipline, lack of courage, poor eating habits, quick to anger. And in the word charisma sort of is, because it's the art of eliciting favor and goodwill from others. Charisma requires the presence of other people for it to be an effective trait to have. For example, if somebody is stranded on a desert island, like the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks, having charisma doesn't do anything for you in such a situation. But character might, because character might give you the ability to endure and tolerate, and it might give you discipline to work towards staying alive or seeking help or something like that, right? But looking at the last 20 years for men's dating, the old school odd seduction fast pickup artistry forum. This forum was something that only taught charisma. And not just that, but there was a marked lack of character in teaching the charisma. So in this forum, you would have a lot of emphasis on learning tactics, techniques, routines, things that hack and mimic people of high charisma. And that was openly said because that was something that was it was the forum was about observing the art of people who are naturally charismatic, people who have they used to call it billionaire energy, and who are natural, meaning the natural guy is the guy who is naturally good at socializing, being an extrovert, maybe even a guy who is gregarious in social situations, observing things that he does, routines, things, body language, things, techniques, calibrations, mannerisms, and then mimicking it, right? And a lot of guys got really good really fast, but at the sacrifice of never developing any character. And it kind of showed with how hard and fast and how strong the cancelling of a lot of community leaders in these forums were, whether it be from the people getting their visa revoked, not being able to enter many countries, a lot of people ending their lives and stuff like that because they were cancelled really bad by mainstream media. They had their Stripe account pulled, their YouTube account cancelled, their WordPress blogging site cancelled, and it was really easy for people to look at a lot of the people from these forums and say, whoa, something is really off here. Even though this guy might be revered amongst thousands of men, but he was revered for just teaching skills of charisma. And then fast forward now to how strong in the manosphere is the MGTOW movement. I think that this movement, like if the old movement was 0% character and 100% charisma, I think this new movement is easily tending towards more of developing character at the sacrifice of charisma traits. And some of the examples of developing character might be, you know, the YouTubers like Hamza and really big looks maxing and status maxing people that say, you know, focus on yourself, don't bother with distractions, loss, and focus on your willpower, your grind, and building your body, semen retention, and not even allowing distractions of women to get in your as part of your mental thoughts for the day. And the thing about it is, while all those things might be good for developing character, I think is really easy to is really easy to happen, and I've seen it happen to a few guys that I know personally, where you take a few years off from life to pursue status maxing and looks maxing, and even after that, those few years, the time you took off to develop some traits like, let me say, looks maxing or going to the gym, right? Vanity came with that. A high ego came with that. The guy probably still didn't develop the courage to go out and speak to women, to open women, to do cold approaches, to just be comfortable in general speaking to women, just because of, you know, being absent from it for so long, and not having the experience of being an extroverted person, so focused internally to being a person of character, introverted for such a long while, that the calibration is missing, and the calibration missing, it just ends up postponing the joining back of the actual dating world for a longer time than already passed. So you have too much character being developed and little charisma, and charisma doesn't like naturally come out of character. In the same way, character doesn't naturally come out of charisma, because a guy could be, in the old school forum, there were a lot of guys with 10 out of 10 expertise in hacking charisma traits. So you could say they have really good charisma from the typical person who looking at them. People probably didn't know where they came from and how they're really hacking it, right? But they got really calibrated at doing certain things, but they never develop any character. And in the same way, that character is something that develop, and somebody might have strong character, but something else develop bad character traits with other stuff. Like sometimes you could get very ego-centered and egotistic when you realize that you reach a certain level of looks maxing and status maxing, and ego really doesn't serve you in communicating with females, especially in approaching, because with ego comes a strong fear of rejection, and that fear of rejection and trying to stay away from difficult situations in which your ego could be hurt doesn't serve you well in the actual dating world. And worse, when women come and give you like congruency tests, and you misread congruency tests, and you take it as a lash out on your ego, and you get angry, and then you decide to MGTOW again. Is really sad, because I think a lot of people doing too much character development to the detriment of the charisma. And I think really people right now in the MGTOW community need to practice a lot more development of charisma traits. Maybe some of the traits some of the techniques and routines from the old school community might be better off coming back now, and maybe like a half and half, where you work on your character, you be aware of your character, but you also at the same time understand that charisma traits is just as important.